Welcome to Intuition and Orgasms, a daring new podcast with Jen Hamilton and Greg Riley, where we dive deep into the intertwined worlds of spirituality, relationships, and self-discovery. We're here to shed light on the often untouched topics that everybody needs to wake up to. Expect raw, unfiltered conversations as we tackle subjects like emotional intelligence, trauma healing, conscious relationships, and yes, better orgasms. We combine our unique experiences and skills, Greg with his intuitive insights and therapeutic expertise, and Jen with her background in clinical hypnotherapy, coaching, tantra, and esoteric psychology. Together, we aim to help you upskill your life, understand your true self, and build meaningful connections. Each episode will explore the tools and practices that foster personal growth and transformation. From unpacking childhood imprints and societal conditioning to discussing the impact of spirituality and energy on relationships, we leave no stone unturned. Plus, we'll share our personal stories of overcoming adversity, leaning into our shadows, and finding profound joy and connection on the other side. Join us on this journey to know yourself, communicate better, and ultimately, fuck better.
G'day, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Intuitions and Orgasms. Jen Hamilton, how are you tonight?
I'm amazing as always. Greg Riley, how are you?
I'm really good, excellent. I'm upsetting people, so I'm in my normal flow state.
And share with us, what have you upset people about this week, Greg?
Just about what people see, gathering real data, not making assumptions on things or people without knowing the real data. And this is why we're going to talk about this tonight, is about, do you really know your partner? And quite often we don't, do we?
No, we don't.
Why is that?
Well, it all comes down to projections, doesn't it? The way in which we see the world is through our lens of our ego or our subconscious mind, which has formed all of our beliefs, all of our conditions, all of the ways in which we see the world. And our relationships aren't exempt from this, and probably like the place first and foremost in our lives that we're going to see this play out with all of our projections, with all of the stuff and things we carry around, because ultimately our partners are the people that we spend the most time with, other than like probably your work colleagues. But it can be like relationships become a dumping ground, don't they? Like they really become a place of a bit of a slinging match at times, we'll say.
Oh, look, and we've discussed this before. So many times in an argument, it's like, you did this and you made me feel like this, and the way you're behaving is not, it's like, woo down, people. Like, I was speaking to someone today, and like I said to him, resolving relationship issues is really, really easy. Like, it's rather simple. We overcomplicate it. And one of the first steps is, do you actually want to fix this relationship? Yeah. Because what most people do is they don't go to someone like me and you to fix it. They go to be right. Always. And again, that's based in a projection or an assumption. And so one of the biggest things, as I said to Nikhil today, one of the steps, or the 3 steps we teach, is that step 2 is human behavior. Like, understand who you're dealing with. That nobody sees the world the way that you do. And quite often when you're having an argument with somebody, it's a projection of your view of things, which not is necessarily correct.
Exactly. And when you're in this argument with, especially with your partner, how hard is it for people to go, okay, you've got a different perspective and that's okay. You see you see the world in a different way and that's okay. It'd be very fucking boring in this world if we all saw things exactly the same way. Social media would be very boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's funny because if you have the ability to have self-awareness around your partner and the way they view the world, your ability to have a relationship that's relatively, astronomically remarkable is huge, because that's the real key to most successful relationships out there, is understanding why your partner behaves the way that they do, the way they view the world and the way they see the world and the way they see themselves. If you get that, you're in a very, 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 very rare place.
Yeah. And it's creating space in the relationship to get to know each other. Know yourself individually. Like we always bring this back to know thyself. It's always going to
Yeah.
be about know thyself. When you know yourself, you can hold space for your partner to know themselves, and then you get to know each other from that perspective, not what you thought it was supposed to be like, or not what you were led to believe based on your parents'
Yeah.
relationship that you modeled while you were growing up. And this is why we see so many people in, counseling and, divorce rates so high, is because it just becomes just this slinging match going backwards and forwards. And it's like, but you don't see my point of view, but you don't see my point of view, but this, but that. It's like, no, this is why everything's hitting the fan, because everyone like sort your shit out.
The word you. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I always say to people. I think it was something of it was a Peter Crone kind of thing, and it was like the moment you say the word "you," the game's over. That's
Yeah.
it. You've just done it then because that's projection of onto somebody else. So
Yeah.
how do we have the awareness around the other person's identity? What if I was coming to you and saying, right, we're having issues with my relationship, and you're saying, well, you need to have an aspect of awareness around the other person's point of view. How do I do that?
Well, it's sitting down from a really open and loving space, asking each other, is this what you want? Like, do you want to be in this? Do you want to actually get to know each other? Are you willing to put down the perspective of your partner for just a moment? And what is it that you know about yourself? And first of all, the way you respond to conflict. If you know that you get heightened in conflict, that you want to fight it out and your partner wants to walk away, that's going to cause issues when you're in that phase of disagreement to begin with, because it's only going to escalate from there. So it's discovering what people's conflict styles are and conflict resolutions are. It's so important to know how your partner ticks. Asking them when you're not in conflict, what is it that you need from me when you're activated or when something comes up for you? What does this mean to you? Are you open to hearing my perspective on this? Is this a good time to talk about things? It's not just flinging things at them when you're in the height of a disagreement. It's sitting down and having a fucking adult conversation and saying, let's do this maturely. Let's do this with love. Let's do this from a place of, I love you, I see you, I value you, I want to be with you. What does it look like to see each other's perspectives and move forward? And then it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have polarizing perspective on things. It's okay to not get along with it'd be very boring if you agreed on absolutely everything.
And this is where curiosity comes into it too, Jan.
Yeah.
Like you have to be curious about the other person. And look, you make a good point there about, so look, arguments. So we'll give you an example. Let's say someone's brought up in a very, toxic environment, and they've seen their mum and dad that they've argued a lot, but they've also seen them make up a lot. And then there's a lot of love and affection after the arguments happened. And they've seen that as a form of affection. And then they've had that with their lives, and they're saying their mum and dad's given them a lot of affection after they've been told off, they've been made to feel wrong, or they've had an argument. So that child then learns that behavior, that the way that I get love and affection is to cause conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So then in my later lives as an adult in relationships, what will I do to get love and affection?
Mm-hmm. Cause conflict, absolutely, yeah, because that's what it's. And we've spoken about this before.
Correct.
It's what people love about makeup sex. It's almost why some people fight, to have that real sort of like passionate, energetic sex afterwards. And people rave on about makeup sex and how good it is, and I'm like, no, no,
Whoa.
that's not okay here.
It's horrible. No, it's not okay. And this is what having the awareness allows you to understand, is that the reason why that person's actually having conflict in life is not because she wants to, or not because that she's trying to be, or he, so I shouldn't say she all the time, but he is causing that, is because somewhere underlying in her subconscious mind that this is how I get love and affection. And it's a learned behavior that I will do this in relationships because then I get this. And that then's giving her the dopamine hit, the feeling of security, feeling of safety, the feeling of, when I was a child, there's nostalgia there as well too. So that's a learned behavior, and they kind of And that's all they know. That's how they're being brought up to go, well, this is how I get love and affection. So if you have the curiosity to understand that, then all of a sudden your projection about your partner, they're a complete bunny boiler, that they're a stage 5 clinger, or they're just difficult, they're always causing conflict, right? The story changes, because then you get to go, oh, that's why they're acting like that. They're not trying to do this on purpose. This is just something that's automatically happening from them. But then I get to understand why they behave the way that they do. And then I can change my story about, I see them from a different point of view. I stop seeing them from being a problem to going, okay, this is how they do that. I get it now. Then you can move forward, because the other way is just labeling it. He's doing this, she's causing arguments. She always just wants to fight. Yeah, she does, but understand why. Or he does.
And what can also happen that I've seen is that people start to build up this resistance to even talk about the stuff, because it may always end up in a fight or an argument. And so they hold back. And then they hold back, and they feel as though they've got to push it down, push it down, push it down. And it's like trying to push a ball under the water. What happens? You try and push it down so far, and it pops up back in your face. So push down, and then
they're the avoiders. They're the ones who have had conflict in there.
Yes. It's purely avoidance.
Yeah, so
and
they're
then
the
what
avoiders
happens?
in life that,
Sorry, go.
Yeah. Yeah, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, what happens is when they're avoiding for so long, when it hits the fan, the other person's actually got no idea that that's what was boiling under the surface, that there was even a problem. Because we'll call it, person A, person B. Person A is the one that's pushing everything down. Person B is going, well, it mustn't be a problem because we're not fighting about it and we're not talking about it. Person A ready to absolutely explode. It takes one stressful thing to happen, or one sort of moment to realize that this is not okay, and it goes bang. And then person B is going, but you didn't say anything about this. I didn't even know you were feeling this way because you kept it all in. Person A is like, well, I kept it all in because every time this happens, we end up fighting and not talking to each other for 4 days. So it's understanding, it's really opening those lines of communication. It's creating space with your partner to sit down, have regular check-ins on your relationship. Have, whether it's a date night, whether you go out and you have a team meeting, for example, you have a team meeting with each other. Where are we at with things, our relationship? What is it that we need to work on? What are we feeling stressed about at the moment? Like you said, invite in curiosity. Ask your partners what's real for them. Ask them what's going on for them. Say, hey, I've noticed that you've been a bit stressed out lately. What can I do to support you through this?
Exactly. And we have to understand that the view of, or who we think our partner is not real. The version of the person that we think we know is based on our preconceived ideas or what we believe them to be, based on the way that we view them, which is then based on the way that how our identity and ego works.
Mm-hmm.
Who the other person is completely different, and understanding, walking in their shoes is highly important, because quite often you'll see then my view of them is completely different to their view of them. And the two, we have this version of it. We think the relationship with the other person's over there with them, but it's not. It's in our own mind. It's in our own head, the way that we see things. So having again, we keep coming back to it. Same whole thing. Self-awareness, intuition, human behavior. We'll keep ramming it home to people. If you want to have a successful relationship, that's the 3 things you need.
Absolutely. And the thing is, again, how we are in small ways is how we are in all ways. And so when we're like this in our relationships, we're doing this in the workplace. We are doing this in social media. We are doing this with our friends. We're doing this with other family members. There's this, there's the old saying that there is a version of you, a different version of you that exists in the minds of every single person that you've ever crossed paths with in your entire life. So imagine all of the people that you've ever crossed paths with, ever spoken to, ever walked past in the street. There is a version of you that exists that is completely different to the next person. And there's a lot of perspectives of you out there, And so when it comes to your partner, their perspective of you is based on their view of the world, the same as every other person in this world.
But then you get down to the evil part, which is, and again, people, if you really understand, if you go down this path, understanding human behavior, then you understand masks. And then you go, okay, well, what mask do I want other people to see? And then you get to manipulate or influence how people see you, because you get to project the mask that you want other people to see. That's a whole other uh, way to go, rabbit hole to go down in that space. That's a more of an advanced technique to be able to manipulate or influence people's version of the way they see you based on the way that you actually project out. But let's start with, kindergarten stuff first, right? Your perception of your partner is not real. It's a belief, but it's not true. And the moment you start, saying something that your partner's not doing, you're taking it, you're projecting a belief or an identity about them that is from your perspective.
And let's
Now,
acknowledge let's acknowledge that there are some fucked up people out there. Like, there are proper, narcissists out there. There's both men and women love bombing, promising people the world, really playing with people's emotions, really fucking with people's heads and their mental health. And so they're creating this ideal version of themselves in, those first couple of months when they first start dating. And all of a sudden it turns completely blindsided. And next minute, there's abuse, there's trauma, there's all sorts of things. Like, let's acknowledge that people also build a view of the opposite sex based on previous experiences that they've had. You talk to anyone that's been with a narcissist, how much they don't trust the other sex. How much stuff they come with to say that all men are like that or all women are like that. And so we have to acknowledge that, sure, there are predators out there. There are people out there that do the wrong thing. There are really nasty people out there in relationships. And don't step into another relationship until you've worked with that. Like, honestly, heal your shit before taking that baggage into another relationship, because it's going to be so unfair. Because if you say, for example, I go out and I date a guy and he's love bombing. Maybe Cass has been love bombing me for the last 9 months and I've got no fucking clue. Maybe I'm being completely blindsided and we've got some great content coming up later in the season, right? But if he's, shown up in all of these beautiful ways and he's been all of these things and, then he's just gone completely the other way, I'm going to go, how the fuck did I miss that? He appeared like this, perfect guy for me. He seems so genuine. And then I'm going to question everything about myself and be like, what's wrong with me that I didn't see this? How did I not read the signs? Why didn't any of my friends tell me what they could see in this? And then it's going to be like, and then if I went, oh, well, flick Cass, okay, cool. I'm going to go get out in the dating scene again and get on all the apps. And God, I couldn't think of anything worse. I think I'm getting into hives thinking of dating again. But if I get myself back out there and I'm doing all of the things, right? Every single man that I come across is going to be tarnished with this brush of, all men are just out to get me. All men are out to hurt me. All men just want one thing. All men are going to blindside me. If I don't do the work on myself, I'm carrying that baggage forward. And we all fucking do it.
Yeah, you're not giving anyone a chance at that stage because it's got a preconceived idea and judgment, right? So, because where this come from was I was commenting on a post, this week about the welcome to country in the what was happening with the Anzac Day stuff, and some people were saying that a certain perspective that it was racist to actually boo the welcome to country, and I said to this guy, well, actually, do you have the data? Have you spoken to the people? Actually, have you got their point of view? And he's like, no, I haven't. I'm just it's racist to do that. Well, how do you know that? Because you haven't spoken to the people, you haven't collected the data, you don't know the reasons why, but you're assuming that they did based on your own biases. And yeah, of course, it blew up on the Facebook comment, and I had every man and his dog trying to come after me, and I keep coming back to the same thing. It's like, guys, read my posts. Do you have the data? Do you have the correct data exactly as to have you spoken to the people? And otherwise, you're just making a judgment and a presumption based on what you think, based on your own bias towards what you believe about the country. And you soon see people leave the argument because they can't come back from that. And it's the same with relationships, right? It's that we have these preconceived ideas about people, because one of the biggest things in relationships, when relationships do go south is having this fresh start. If you
Mm.
try and move forward and try and solve a problem or try and solve the relationship issues you've got, you can't move forward with the old identity. You can't move forward with the old biases and belief systems that this person's like this because they were like this for the last 10 years. That
Mm.
will then destroy any progress you made because you've been driven again from old data that it's not a fresh start. And then everything you're going to do, no matter what they try, you'll try and sabotage it from that place. So it's really important to understand that, you know, Jen, you're right. You really need to know thyself in a deep way, but also know the fact that if you're in a difficult place right now in a relationship and you want to try and make something better, then you at some stage you need to make a line, draw a line in the sand and kind of go, the past is in the past. I can't keep going back there.
Yeah, absolutely. And support your partner in that. You know, it's like I said, it's opening those lines of communication. It's asking them, like, you can't just say, we're going to have a fresh start. You can't just do a Ross and Rachel, we're on a break and go and sleep with someone else. And then it's messy for the rest of your relationship. You know, you know, it's
Yeah.
being a fucking adult in a relationship. You know, it's really honoring and respecting
Yeah.
your partner's needs and the relationship within itself as its own entity, but asking yourself, do you, if you want to make this work, then do the work to make it work. You know, both of you have to show up, and there's got to be some kind of I would say, you know, a code word or some level of accountability that your partner gets to pull when you're going back into old ways. It's like, hang on a second, this is we're going back into old ways. That's not going to work for us this time. You know, you can't just call, okay, cool, we're starting fresh without actually having a plan. I think a plan is so vital to go, well, this is probably going to come up. What are we going to do in this situation? Would you agree?
Yeah, and it's very easy to slip back into old patterns because the you're trying to move forward in a relationship to rebuild basically trust again. And
Mm.
how do I trust? And people are going to go, well, you have to do this to then for me to regain trust. And it's sort of like, well, if you're waiting for someone to do certain things then to regain trust, then you'll be waiting for a long time. This is why therapy takes so long and it fails most of the time. You know, where we sort of work is that you have to lead with that.
Yeah.
You do have to take a gamble. You do have to go, right. I know some things have happened in the past. I know that we're here for the right reasons, and I'm going to play this 100%. And I need to, you know, show something to go, right. Well, I'm going to throw this out again because this is worth it. Because if
Mm.
you withhold trust and you withhold certain things for the other person, then to prove, go, well, I'm not doing this until this person does this. But then that if he does that or she does that, then that'll prove that I can then do this, right? And then it becomes
Mm.
transactional.
Yeah.
And then there's no win in that place because the person's sitting there going, well, the only reason they're doing this is because I did this. And this becomes this quid pro quo kind of thing where people are only doing things because the other person's doing something rather than you leading with, I'm doing this. And then
Mm.
that's why the relationship fails again, is because it becomes completely transactional at that stage. And that's not good. Then because, you know, then you start withholding sex and then you start using it as a currency to, you know, get back at people. And then all of a sudden you haven't had sex for 12 months.
Exactly. And we've talked about, you know, bids for affection before. One person's going, I want to show affection, I want to
Yeah.
make up, I want to move through this. And the other person, I'm not ready yet, don't touch me. You know, and there's only so much rejection that you can take before you go, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this anymore.
Well, it's the number one precursor to, well, actually two things, right? So this is part of the Gottman training. So there's two things. One's bid for affection, the other one's contempt. So
Mm.
if you had a rejection of bids for affection and you have contempt, you're gone. You're shot.
Mm.
That's it. So might as well is divorced. You're a statistic at that stage.
Yeah.
You know, that's the two things you'll see. Because so contempt. So people understand what is contempt, right? Contempt is rolling your eyes.
Mm.
You know, contempt is the moving the mouth to one side and just trying to. There's a lot of facial expressions. Contempt is, you know, really belittling the other person as well too. You
Mm.
know, making them feel shame and guilt. So if you have that in there, that's really hard to come back from. No matter how
Mm.
much you understand the other person, or go to the path of understanding why they behave the way they do, you know, rejecting bids for affection and remaining in a contemptuous place yourself is
Mm.
is 100% will end up in a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, if you're the type of person that's going to hold on to things and store things as ammunition, check in with yourself as to why you feel the need to do that. Like, what does that actually, what do you get from that?
Yeah,
What
you
do you
deserve
gain
what you
from
get,
that?
then.
Hey?
You deserve what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly that.
you
Exactly
deserve what
that.
you get. Then
Yeah. If you
if
want
you're
to,
doing that, yeah,
yeah, if you're holding back, if you're reserving things to use them at a later date, if you're, using stuff that's so far back from the past or stuff that was already resolved that you talked about, if you can't apologize, if you can't take radical responsibility for your words and your actions and the part that you played in all of this, then there's bigger things going on, because not only are you going to be alone, you're going to be sad.
yeah. And people will go, Jen, that's all good, well and good, Greg and Jen. But how do I let go of he had an affair or she had an affair? How do I let go of the fact that there's been some emotional abuse? How do I let go? It's easy for you to say this, but it's harder to do it than it is to say it.
Mm.
And I get that, but at a point, it's still a choice.
It
Like,
is still a choice.
again,
Yeah.
why are you hanging on to it? Is it to feed your identity about your insecurity, about your self worth? Because the only
Mm.
reason you're holding on to it is because of an identity. Like, it's
Yeah.
happened, it's in the past. That's why it's called the past. If
Mhm.
if it's really an issue for you, then leave the relationship. If you want to stay in the
Mm.
relationship, then you have to look at the fact is that, well, why am I still hanging on to that
Yeah.
situation? And it's a little bit, we're not as cold hearted as that, right? There is some empathy in what we do, but we have to be sometimes ruthless and kind of just go, well, yeah, I get that that's happened, and we're all very, apologetic for it. There's reasons for it happen, because affairs don't happen because one person does something. It's usually two people leading to a situation that does happen.
Mm.
Rarely does it happen where it's just one person. They're usually, psychopaths at that stage. Um, but you really have to understand why is there a disconnect in the relationship in the first place. Understand that, you know what's led up to it and what's your role in that stuff. And then you
Mm.
kind of go, well, okay, this happened, but I need to move forward, because you
Mm.
can't drive a car looking in the rear vision mirror the whole time, because you'll crash the car. But that's how most
Exactly
people
that.
live their lives, is looking
Yeah.
backwards.
Exactly. And also, like, what are you surrounding yourself with? Like, what content are you absorbing? Like, if you're sitting back, if you're watching old episodes of Sex in the City and you're reading Woman's Day and Mamma Mia, which is all just full of just literal trash filling your brain, you're starting to build a perspective of the world based on the things that get drama and ratings. Oh, if you're just constantly scrolling other people's, airing their dirty laundry on Facebook, and you're like, wow, yeah, I can so relate to like Carrie Bradshaw, or I can so relate to whoever's writing for Mamma Mia these days. If I can, relate to my old neighbor's sister's cousin that's like going through a divorce and he cheated and now all of his stuff's on the front lawn and she's burning it. Yeah, yeah, girl power, if you're filling your
Yeah,
mind with all of that stuff, that's completely it's just trash. It's all there for ratings. It's all there for attention seeking. If you're filling your whole life and your
for
feed
sure. Yeah,
essentially that you're seeing with that, you're going to start looking for ways in which you can identify like that. I remember I went through this phase years ago of watching Suits, right? Because we all love Harvey Specter, but we love the
yeah,
storyline as well. And I remember I would watch so many episodes. I was like binging this show. It was ridiculous, right? But I would go through the world as if I was like going into a lawsuit. It's almost like I embodied being one of the characters in it, or being a smartass like Donna. It's almost like you just want to, you feel part of the show when you're so deeply in it, you know? And I had to say, like, pull myself out of that. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know about you, but
yeah.
if anyone watched Breaking Bad, did we all not feel like drug dealers by the end of that? So it's what you're consuming, it's what you're filling your mind with, it's what you're watching. If you're watching TV, what you're watching on social media, the stuff that you're reading. I know so many women, like I would say almost literally every woman has read the book A Court of Thorn and Roses. It's a smut book, right? I don't know if I bought it. I was like, I need to start reading fiction. I got to put down personal development books just for a minute. and I want to read something. I couldn't get into it. I could not get into it. But there are so many women reading like these like fantasy smut books, which is all well and good, but they're literally living in a fantasy that does not exist. Like fairies are fucking and all sorts of
Fantasy.
things.
Yeah.
It's fully fantasy and women are loving it. I get that. Not to mention like men are, gaming on Fortnite and all those kind of things. They're going around thinking like they're king shit and they can shoot shit up, right? So everyone's doing it. I'm not, saying one's worse than the other.
Yep.
Everyone's doing something, right? But choose your poison. Like choose what it is that you want to absorb, because that is also forming your perspective and your perception of the world and your partner. Like if you're reading a fantasy smut book about, I don't know, like Tinkerbell fucking someone, or I don't know, and then you're having vanilla sex with your partner, it's the same as him watching pornography. Like it's no different. It's no different because you're building up these
So
ideologies
different.
that don't exist. Like it's not real. And there's women like going through these books going, oh my God. And then all the women are jumping on them. I would love to know the statistics of how many books of like those that series has been sold. Like what happened to just coming back to yourself, coming back to your relationship, coming back to your divine union of love, of soul connection? Is that too hard to ask?
Well, yes, sometimes, because people just don't. They want to stay in their drama. They want to stay in this place where I'm right and you're wrong, and that's where a lot of people come from. Is that I want to win the argument, and I quite often say to people when they start, "Do you want to be right, or do you want to fix this?" Because I can't do both. If you want to be right, go for it, but we can't do that because that's just a. If you're here to win an argument about how right you are about what they've done to you, well done, but you're in the wrong place. And that's where a lot of people fail at the start, is that I want to be right, rather than curiosity is one of the biggest superpowers there is. Like having real curiosity about certain things, because curiosity leads to listening, and listening leads to healing. But having a rigid mindset about this is the way it is, and I can't, because what people do is if they have curiosity, they have to admit that they might be wrong about something, and that doesn't go well for some people, especially if they're trying to push the I'm trying to win argument about our relationship is like this because they've done something.
Yeah.
Now, where the real healing comes from is having curiosity about, okay, well, why has this happened, and there requires a bit of empathy as well too, right? Because when we're talking to people, a lot of people's heart chakras are closed; they're completely shut off.
Absolutely.
And having curiosity in a way that is a really is a great tool to have, not only in your relationship but every other aspect of your life,
Life
because
itself.
you start to sort of see the world differently. You kind of go, well, yeah, because you have this thing where you're curious about a lot of different things, and you start to question the narrative that's being shown to you. And a lot of people know, especially through look at COVID, for example. The people who were curious about the jab were shut down, as being conspiracy theorists. Well, now look what's happened.
Exactly.
Yes, the COVID jab causes all these heart issues, right? So again, it goes back to bias is judgment, and it's a dangerous trap to have, especially in relationships. If you want to heal something, the first part is you have to drop your agenda, and you have to be curious about that. Maybe my point of view may be a little bit skewed. It may not be wrong, but it may be a little bit tainted by the way that I sort of see things based on the way that I believe that the way that it should be, rather than go, let me walk in your shoes and understand you, and then see it from a point of view. And then, especially for men, like this is for once you if men learnt that, like Cass teaches and Cass knows, it's a really attractive part of being in a relationship. But guys, still don't use it to fix them. Just be curious, understand them, listen to them, and maybe offer a couple of questions, but don't fix it.
No, cup of tea and some questions.
Let them do it. You can guide them, you can help them, because it's very easy to go, oh look, they're behaving like this because of this and this. Why don't you do this that will solve it? It's like, oh, you did undid all your good work. You got nearly all the way there, and then you went, try to fix it again. So the best,
Yeah.
the best, and this is the way that Jen and I work. The best way that we work is we just ask questions, and the person gets their own insights, and then they get their own download, and they get their own, you know, shift from that place because they have the awareness to do it themselves. That's the only way it really does work. But that
Yeah.
requires you to actually see, perception. So, which
Absolutely.
again requires you to have intuition.
Exactly. It all comes back to that. One of the things that I really dive into with people, and I mean, this, you guys are getting like a free coaching session here, but I always check in with people. What is your relationship now? And what was it like growing up with being wrong? So before we can even talk about the wrong, we need to
Yeah.
understand how they relate to being wrong. Because as we're growing up, we have coded right and wrong as good and bad, as safe and unsafe, meaning I will live or I will die. Generally, people are wired to think that being wrong is bad, which is unsafe, which that literally their nervous system goes, I might die. Because when you've grown up and you've been reprimanded for
Yes.
being wrong about something, you have coded it in your brain that this is not survivable. And I have to do everything to fight to be right to get back into safety. People code being right as being safe. And so if you're always
Yep.
fighting to be right, like people on the internet, it's because of their relationship with being wrong. So we need to dive into that. We need to understand, what was it like for you as a child growing up when you did something wrong? What happened? How were you reprimanded? What happened to you at school? What
Yeah.
happened if you got shitty grades? What happened if you got into an argument? What were the consequences of that? And how did your body respond to that? Once we can understand that, we can understand usually why people are acting out the way they are is because their relationship with being wrong feels wildly unsafe. And so it's then about rewiring their relationship with wrong to go, actually, do you know what? It's okay to be wrong. It's okay because you're going to survive this. You've been wrong so many times. It might have been uncomfortable, but no one's, died and the world hasn't imploded because you were wrong, you know? And so it's about really understanding their base level of what that looks like and then going, okay, we're going to step into this. You're not here to be right. You are going to be wrong about something and you're going to create safety in that.
Yeah. And some people have like it's a status for them as well too. Like if I am wrong at some stage, it will dent my identity in the public eye. It will dent my my status or something in the world. So if I admit I'm wrong, then maybe I'm it leads to other things. Like you said, it's all connected to childhood. And
Mm.
one of the things that you and I do, Jen, is like we're constantly wrong across the
Yeah.
board, right? If
Yeah,
you
it's
lived a
humiliating
week with
sometimes.
me and Jen, you would see a list. Oh, well, Greg's a bit of a shit show, and that's because we understand the way to mastery is a series of mistakes and a
Mhm.
series of being wrong. That's we understand that in a very deep sense of how we operate. It's a success as a series of falling over yourself constantly to get to the place you want to get to,
Mm.
and so if you're so rigid in not being able to be wrong about something, we also you've got nowhere to go. Like you're not going to live a life that's very fulfilling because you're constantly hyper vigilant then about trying to be right, and you
Mm.
never relax.
Yeah, you're constantly running from yourself. It is a really uncomfortable place in your own head to be when you're running from yourself, when you can't be real with yourself. And you might have thought that you were right for a long time and then realized that you were wrong about something. You may have changed your mind about
Yeah,
something. You may have got
plenty of
something
people thought the
completely wrong.
yeah, plenty of people thought the world was flat for a long time,
They
and
still
still
do,
do.
Greg.
Right? Plenty of people still think that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as plenty of people trusted the science during
I had a
COVID.
funny thing. I had a funny thing. This is a complete tangent. Um, this is on a psychedelic thing I was listening to during the week, and the guy was saying, "Well, technically they're right because in a certain version of reality, the world is flat, and a certain version of reality, the world is round. It just depends on which version of reality you're actually tapping into. There's like, radio, okay, fuck you. So,
True.
because that's too far down again. That's another rabbit hole you can go down, and that's that's a headache in itself. But it just takes raw, like, okay, honesty that you know being wrong isn't the worst thing in the world. But like you said, you got to tap into, why do you feel negativity around being wrong? Because you were punished for it, or you were never going to, there was no safety there, like you said, that being wrong is unsafe. Especially like in workplaces these days, what happens if you're wrong?
You can get the sack, like you can get reprimanded for it, you can get demoted, all of the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why would you want to be admitting that you're wrong? Because you have this, again, society around you promotes a scenario when you're wrong, that you're either going to be out of a job, demoted, or take a pay cut. We have a society that thrives on lying. We reward
Absolutely.
lying, so we keep some things going. Yeah, and it's and that's where some of the really good workplaces in the world promote failure as a very a massive asset to the team, and they let the teams fail on a way to innovation. And when you got a company that's very innovative, and this works in a lot of if you got a place which is just more of an operational thing, you don't have the scope for that. But if you're in an innovation company, you're all about failure.
Yeah, you
That is
thrive
your
on
one
failure.
mantra.
Yeah.
I will constantly fail. Yeah, exactly. And that's much more healthier. But we don't have, like, if you saw a child, like, if you yelled at a child the first time they tried to walk, oh, you're shit, you're hopeless, how dare you, look at you, you're 18 months old, you should be walking by now, I can't believe you sat down after trying to get up. Like, we don't do that.
No.
We encourage the child to keep going and give them all the love and comfort to, yes, they've fallen over 15 times, they've banged their head, they're now, trying to ride the dog, all that kind of stuff, right? But for some reason, in another way, we then in other areas just go hell for leather on people about when they make a mistake, and that doesn't breed for very good relationships. So if you want to have a healthy relationship with your partner, you have to breed a system or a place or an awareness where you can have the ability to fail on a regular occurrence and not have the repercussions of being told you're a shit show
Yeah, and the thing is, like,
or be
when someone
judged.
admits,
You
it's when
have to
someone
have that ability.
Yeah. When someone admits that they're wrong, or that they fucked up, or that they've got work to do, like, that level of vulnerability, it's so sexy. Like, I find it so appealing when someone, like, really drops into that level of vulnerability, and they're like, they go inwards and they do that self-reflection and they have that self-awareness, and then they love themselves through it as well. Because if you're beating yourself up for it as well, no, stop it. We don't do that here. Love yourself through failure. Love
Yeah.
yourself through being
Or
wrong.
if if I was going to say, if someone actually then ridicules you for being vulnerable, you won't get that again. You get one shot at it. You're like, if you're that open and that vulnerable, and you come to the person and you get shot down, that's it. You're done then, because here's the opportunity for you to be able to step up and provide that space for them. And if you shoot them down at that stage, then that then blocks the other way forward. So you do have to have this is, look, it just comes back. We'll just keep ramming it home time and time and time again. If you do not understand human psychology and human behavior in a relationship, you are so far behind the ball game. But this is such an easy fix. Like, there's some very basic techniques people can learn. Jen and I have been studying this for 25, 30 odd years. You don't have to do that. You got us so we can shortcut this stuff for you. Teach you some basic skill sets on human behavior, and it will set your relationship up in a way that you can only ever dream of.
Exactly that. And that's what you want to be filling your mind with. Like, if you put down the reruns of Sex and the City, put down the Mamma Mia and the Woman's Day magazines, and work on yourself, pick up some personal development, learn how human behavior and psychology can coexist, learn about yourself, journal. Like, I have a whole program, Greg, on know thyself, because it's the first step to growth and awareness is knowing who you are, knowing how you tick, knowing that deep inner stuff. You've got to go digging, you've got to go exploring. Is it uncomfortable? Maybe sometimes. Is it the most beneficial
Yeah.
thing you can do? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's and unlock portals and doorways to, people say that they want this, but then there's no action there to actually do that. Because like you said, it is hard, Jen. Like we're not going to sugarcoat this. Going as part of understanding, how you behave and taking complete accountability for the way that you show up in life is not comfortable.
Mm.
But the
Yeah,
reward is
exactly.
just huge.
Yeah, that's it. And if you're in a relationship, if you're getting, committed to someone, whether it's, marriage, whether you want to write it into your vows that you explore vulnerability and you're always inviting in curiosity and inviting in space for each other to grow, like to grow
Yeah.
together means shedding old versions of yourselves individually and collectively.
Yeah.
It's deciding that very regularly you will go to each other's funerals to mourn the death of the version that they once were, because they're stepping into a newer version of themselves through the growth work that they do.
Yeah.
That's what relationships are. People think that, oh, okay, cool, we just get married and we're done now. That's not what happens. Go and revisit your vows. What did you say to your partner that you said that you were going to do? Why did you, it's almost like people just flippantly get into relationships so easily now. And I mean, we could do it. I think we've done episodes on how disposable people are these days. And it's like, oh, next, and it's like, no, if you want to like incredibly, divine union, life partner, like soul shattering, earth shattering orgasms,
Yeah.
because of the divine connection that you have created through sacred union, do the work.
Yeah, people think it's these days they can just jump from one to the other, and the grass is greener on the other side. But you're just dragging more trauma, more trauma, more trauma to the next thing, and then you realise that you end up lonely
The
and
grass isn't
alone.
greener on the other side. It's astroturf and it's fake.
The dog's weed on it. Um, so it's rather, guys, it is rather simple if you want to have a healthy relationship. The real question is, do you want to do it? That's I come back to that when I first speak to people is, do you actually want to do this? Because some people don't, or they don't know how to, and that I suppose is what we're trying to demystify here is that having a healthy relationship, although there's all this stuff in it, comes down to some very basic principles: effort and a bit of psychology.
Yeah.
I can't make it more
Yeah.
simple than that.
Exactly
I
that. And
really
like
can't.
it's a glorious time when you're in a relationship with someone that like mirrors things back to you and that you openly and lovingly work together through things. Like you have it, I have it, like it is possible. We stand in, our relationships knowing that all of these things, we embody these things in our relationships. Is
Yeah.
it easy? No, it's not easy. Is it worth
No.
it? 1,000% it's worth it.
Well, let me ask you a question, right? So you work in PT. If someone was trained to be a PT, like one of those guys, what would they have to go and learn about to become a very, very proficient exercise physiologist and a PT and a trainer? What would they have to learn?
They have to learn all about the body, anatomy and physiology. They would have to learn, nutrition. They'd have to learn movement. They'd have to learn all about different muscles, bones, all of the things. There's so much to learn.
Yeah, right. So here's the magical question: why don't we do it about relationships then?
Exactly that. Exactly. Why isn't there any level of education around relationships ever?
Yeah, and when most people try and educate them when it's broken already, like we're going to see
Mm.
somebody because the whole thing's broken, then we're trying to learn from there. We're saying you can preempt this stuff,
Mm.
like going into a relationship and working with somebody to help you understand, each other's way of perceiving the world is how the best relationships work. They don't wait till they're broken to then
Mhm.
try and fix it. The best ones out there go, "Hey, Greg, hey, Jen, teach us about, help us, we're in a new relationship, help us understand each other, guide us
Mhm.
through the way that Julie and Craig over there, view the world and what they brought into relationships, look through, their past histories, the past traumas, and how they brought up, and then help us understand how we view the world and how that impacts on what we want from a relationship perspective. Now, I did that. I will always do that. And I will continue to actually evolve the understanding of the way that humans work on an ongoing basis. That's why
Yeah.
you work as well too with Cass. That's why, because it's for you, it's about a never-ending thirst of knowledge and wisdom through learning about, deep human psychology.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you guys successful.
Absolutely. We're both committed to this. Like we put, there's a lot that's on the line for us. Like we live in different states. Like this is, the investment that we have into our relationship is not just, oh, we'll catch up on the weekend when we've got
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We're literally doing things like from the other side of the country and thriving in it because we are so committed to our individual and our growth together. Because we have future goals and visions. We have fun along the way. I don't have a crystal ball that says, hey, I'm going to be with this guy forever. I don't know what the future looks like. All I know is that the energy that we're both pouring into that is equal and it is loving and we're thriving in it. And that's what matters right now,
Yeah. Yeah. And you understand this, like, people have said this to me a few times, is that understand the reason why Jen and I work well together, we are so different. We have completely different ways of relationships, and neither way is right or wrong. And this is what we try and give you as well, as very different perspectives of you can have different ways of doing this. There's no right way of doing it. There'll be some things that I do in the relationship that would go for you, like, get stuff. I'm never doing that shit. That's just fuck off. Right? That's not me, who I am. And there'll be some things that you guys do that I'll go, never doing that shit either.
Or some
right?
things that it's not possible because you have children with your partner. You guys have like maintained that family union. I've got 2 children to another man, and I have a partner, and my ex-partner's got a wife. We're blending all of us together to ultimately make sort of like a larger unit work. And so I can speak into this. I can speak into like really conscious co-parenting. Like the kids' dad and I, we're good at this game. We're real good at this game. I get on really well with his wife. Cass and him get on really well. The kids are happy. They see us all together at birthday parties. I see their dad at pick up and drop off and stuff like that. We have a chat. We go to parent teacher interviews together. It works so well together. It is possible.
I've got an idea. Next podcast we do, I would love to talk about that, because quite often I'll say to people, like, even though they're divorced, like, you've come to me for coaching and you're going to divorce, you can either be adults about this or you can be children. Again, it comes back to who's winning, is that, are you thinking about yourself and your ego, or are you thinking about your kids?
Exactly.
So that'll be a really good thing for, because obviously you've got a very healthy relationship with your ex-partner, and even to say that I really like his new wife and stuff like that, that's a rare occurrence. But you've had to there'll be some dark times, I suppose, in your story there that you kind of probably want to scratch your eyes out. But
absolutely.
You've got 2 children there you need to think of that's greater than your own ego and your own wants to, mitigate the hurt or whatever it was. I'm just making stuff up now, but that's a really, I commend you on that, Jen. That's a absolutely magnificent outcome.
Thank you. And because of that, our children are thriving. They know what love looks like. They know what affection looks like. They know they were quite young when we separated. We'll go all about this into the next episode. But what they have witnessed, what they have modeled in having 2 different families, with a very loving, supporting space where we don't talk down about, each other. And, we're there for the children. They are thriving in life, absolutely thriving. They're the most beautiful children.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
I think we've covered everything. I think just know thyself, fuck better. Like That's what it's always going to come back to, Greg.
Simplify it, Jen. I think what we're trying to do for listeners here is we're trying to make things rather simple, right? We can get so complicated about stuff, and that's the issue with a lot of the stuff out in. There's so much information on the internet. There's so much stuff in ChatGPT. Like, we are so overloaded with information that the value of information now is zero.
Mm-hmm.
Simplicity is the best. And simplicity has always been there. And this is what we're trying to show you. There's some very, very simple ways for you to actually have a very healthy, loving, caring, spiritually aware, conscious, know thyself, fuck better relationship, right? It doesn't have to be as complicated as people think it is. It's an illusion. There's some very simple steps to go, do this and do this, or become this and, act like that. You'll get what you want. And, I hope, that's what we're trying to say to you guys is that there is a way forward for this. There is a way that you can actually, attain or experience those relationships. You don't have to have the fear of, okay, I'm so overwhelmed with what's out there. Where's my first step? The first step is, reaching out to people like us and going, well, how do I resolve this relationship? Easy. Do you want to fix it?
Yeah.
And
and you're willing to be wrong.
We're willing to be wrong. Okay. So yeah. Where can they find us, Jen?
Always on Instagram. Look for us. Our handle is @Intuition and Orgasms. Leave us comments. We love to hear how much you're loving the show. If you've got any questions at all, please let us know.
Until next time.
See you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We hope you loved it. And the biggest compliment that you can give us is leaving a rating and review. If you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to reach out via our Instagram page, Intuition and Orgasms Podcast. We will see you in the next episode.